Hello, my name is Paris Capell and I'm a Natural Capital Advisor at Western Local Land Services, and I also love soil, and we're going to be covering over some soil basics today. Perfect. So first off, how is soil made? What even is soil? So soil is all the dirt that you can see in your backyard at home, but we actually call it soil because it's a living thing. And soil started off, if we look at this rock, this is how the world began. All the world was covered in different kinds of rocks, and there's a process called weathering and erosion that happens. And that happens when the climate, so rainfall might come and little like lichens and mosses will start to break up the rocks, and they'll start to fall apart and form something like this. So rock might be made up of lots of different particles. We might have some choc chips, we might have some yummy bickies. This is always the start of soil, so we call this parent material. So once we have the parent material, we then need two really important things. One of them is time. So soil takes a long time to develop. It can take thousands of years to make a centimetre of topsoil. And the other thing we need is organisms. So we can have grass or other living things starting to break down our parent material and turn it into soil, which is what we see in our backyards. Now soil can be lots of different colours. It can be a dark chocolatey colour or this lighter colour that we see on top. But no matter what colour the soil is, one thing we usually have the same is soil layers, which we call horizons. So here today we've got two soil horizons, our white chocolate and our milk chocolate. Excellent. So the next part of soils is, are all soils the same? And they're actually not. Soils are just as diverse as all the chocolates you can find in the supermarket aisle. So the first thing that can be really different about soils is their texture. So if we look at some of the different chocolate bars we have here, we've got caramel. So in here, actually beneath the chocolate is nice and gooey, and we can have soils that look firm on the surface but are actually really thick and watery underneath. It's really interesting. We might also have soils that have lots of different particles in them. They might have carbonate rocks or other little gravelly components like this rocky road. We might have soils that are more fine particles, so a bit more clay, like a boost that can be really sticky and really mushy in the middle when it gets wet. Or we could have something like a violet crumble here, which is nice and dry in the middle and a bit crumbly with its texture. So all the textures are really different as well as their colours. And so that also comes down really to what parent materials they come from, because if they come from the coast, they might be a bit more sandy, or a bit further inland, they'll have a different texture as well. So all soils are very different. So it's really important all soils are different because each soil type can produce a really different agricultural commodity. So some soil types are more appropriate for cropping, so our cereals like our grains and our wheat, and some are better for grazing or producing really niche crops as well. So having different soil types is a really important thing and a really fantastic aspect about Australian agriculture. So the reason why each soil is different is because they're all made of different percentages of three main components, which is sand, silt and clay. But what do they feel like? So one of the first things we look for when we're texturing soil is sand. So sand usually makes up soils near the coast, and when we're feeling soil for their soil texture, it's one of the first things we pick up because it feels like just like anything you'd pick up at the beach. So anything that is a bit gritty, a bit rough around your fingers, we know that means there's sand in the soil, so that's sand. The next component, which is really important in agriculture, is clay. Now I don't have clay here, I actually have Play-Doh, but Play-Doh feels exactly like clay does when you're trying to make a fist full of soil to get its texture. We call that a bolus. So when we're feeling soil, if it feels really Play-Doh-y like this, a bit plastic-y, quite soft, and we can also make a ribbon out of it, that means that there's lots of clay in the soil, which is really important. The last thing we have in soil is called silt. And silt is also a bit hard to pick up because it's something that you can't really visualize, but it feels exactly like flour. So when you're feeling flour, it feels really powdery, quite silky, very soft on your fingers, and also really dry. So if we feel that when we're looking at a soil profile, we know there's lots of silt in the soil profile as well. So is the soil living or non-living? It actually is very much alive. Firstly, we have what you see on the top at home. So you might have some grass, some trees. They all live because of all the nutrients that we have in soil. But of course, we can't have big things living in the soil without much littler friends that help us to have living things. So they include worms. So worms are really important for helping to aerate the soil. Right now, can you try and hold your breath? You can't last very long, can you? And that's the same with soils. We need air in soils to have life and for the soil to breathe. So worms are really important. We also have other little things living in the soil like bacteria and fungi and protozoa, and they're much smaller than these worms here, but they also help live in the soil and help break down nutrients and provide important energy to plants in the soil as well. So we have a whole ecosystem of living things that we can't see with our naked eyes helping to support our soils. And can we improve soil? Well, that's a great question. And actually, this is a 1 metre soil core taken from a farm near here. And there's lots of ways we can actually improve this soil profile. So the first thing we can do to look after our soils a bit better is, just like humans, soils and our lovely friends that live in the soils don't want to be burnt by the sun. We want to keep them nice and cool and shaded. So it's really important that we try and keep ground cover as much as we can throughout the year. The second thing we can do to look after our soils is we can add in different nutrients. So this soil here might be really acidic or really basic on the pH scale, and we can try and add different nutrients in to make sure it's the best pH we can have for plant growth. And we can also add in different, if the soil's very runny and wants to fall apart in the rain, there's also other ingredients we can add to try and improve the soil quality. So that's really important for agricultural production and to feed the Australian population.